A manager leans back in the chair and says, "Don't worry about sending an email. We've already discussed it." 3 weeks later, nobody remembers that conversation, except you. The manager denies the details. HR asks for documentation. Leadership asks where it was confirmed in writing. And you're standing there with the only thing you have, your memory, which, in a workplace dispute, is worth almost exactly nothing. Employees believe conversations create protection. They don't. Documentation creates protection. Conversation is where decisions begin. Writing is where careers survive. Most people learn this rule after it's too late to use it. So let's walk through the situations where a verbal conversation, no matter how friendly, should never be allowed to stay verbal. First, understand why we make this mistake at all. Nobody relies on verbal agreements because they're careless. They rely on them because writing things down feels confrontational. Sending a follow-up email feels like calling your manager a liar in advance. Asking for confirmation in writing feels like you don't trust the relationship. So people choose comfort over protection, and they tell themselves, "We understand each other." And they do understand each other, right up until incentives change. Here's the part almost nobody explains. When a manager remembers a conversation differently than you do, they usually aren't lying. Memory bends towards self-interest. Embarrassment edits it. Fear edits it. Career preservation edits it. A manager who promised you something they can no longer deliver will genuinely remember promising less, not because they're evil, because the human mind protects its owner first. Your accurate memory and their convenient memory will both sound sincere in a meeting room. Only one of you will have an email. And the longer you wait, the worse this gets. Every month that passes, everyone's memory drifts a little closer to the version that's most convenient for them, yours included. Start with money. Salary, bonuses, raises, promotions, commission structures, title changes, remote work arrangements, promises about your next review. Verbal promises about compensation have the shortest lifespan of anything said in a workplace. Think about why managers make these promises in the first place. Some genuinely believe the approval is coming. Some need you motivated until a project finishes and a promise is cheaper than a raise. Some hope circumstances will improve and they'll grow into the promise. Some forget by Friday. Some leave the company. Some get promoted and inherit new priorities that don't include you. Your career shouldn't depend on which one of those managers you happen to get. Because here's how it ends. You pass your manager in the hallway 6 months later. They smile. They ask how the family is. You mention the promotion they promised. Their forehead wrinkles. Did I actually promise that? They're not performing. They genuinely don't remember it the way you do, and there's nothing in writing to remind either of you. The most common outcome isn't even a betrayal. It's the phrase, "We'll revisit this later," repeated at intervals, forever. Temporary is one of the most dangerous words in corporate life because nobody ever schedules the meeting where temporary officially ends. If money or advancement was discussed, a short written summary should exist within the hour. Next, workload changes. You're asked to cover for someone who left, take on a project, act as manager for now, absorb someone else's responsibilities temporarily. These arrangements are dangerous precisely because they feel like compliments. Then your inbox doubles, your calendar doubles, your responsibilities double, your paycheck never notices. And there's a psychological trap hiding inside this one. Employees keep saying yes because they believe recognition is one more yes away. If I keep absorbing this, they'll finally see me. But the organization doesn't see a hero. It sees a new normal. Yesterday's favor becomes today's baseline. Today's baseline becomes tomorrow's minimum. Nobody sends a memo announcing that your job description grew. The expectations just update themselves, without a meeting, without a raise, without your consent. The questions worth confirming in writing are simple. What exactly is being added? Is anything being removed? Who approved this? How long does it last? How will success be measured? An employee who asks those questions in an email isn't being difficult. They're preventing an arrangement that exists only in goodwill, because goodwill has no expiration date printed on it, but it always expires. Third, instructions that feel wrong. Being asked to adjust a report, edit figures, skip a safety step, use someone else's login, tell a customer something that isn't quite true. sign off on work that isn't finished. This is not the moment for confrontation, and it's not the moment for silence either. It's the moment for calm confirmation. Just to make sure I understood correctly, you'd like me to submit the report with the revised numbers? Sent in writing does two things. It gives the other person a chance to correct a genuine misunderstanding, and if there was no misunderstanding, it establishes that the instruction came from above you. When something improper surfaces later, and it usually surfaces, the question won't be who did it, it will be who told them to. Notice something about that email, by the way. People argue differently when there's a record. Instructions get clarified. Requests get softer. Deadlines get realistic. Documentation doesn't just protect you after a problem, it changes the politics of the conversation before a problem exists. A surprising number of workplace disasters never happen simply because someone put the plan in writing and everyone suddenly became more careful. Fourth, harassment, bullying, discrimination, repeated inappropriate comments. Here, the gap between what employees feel and what employees can prove destroys more legitimate complaints than anything else. My boss is toxic is an emotional label. It's real to you and useless to an investigation. What matters is specifics, the exact words used, the date, the time, who was present, what happened next. Written down while the memory is fresh, not reconstructed months later when you finally decide to report it. A pattern documented in real time is evidence. A pattern described from memory is an opinion. Fifth, performance conversations. Verbal warnings, vague criticism, words like communication issues, attitude, professionalism, not a team player. The most dangerous criticism isn't the one that's false, it's the one that's too vague to defend yourself against. You can't disprove an attitude, and vague criticism has a long memory. A sentence spoken casually in April can reappear word for word in your performance review in December, except now it's official, and now it has a paper trail, and now it was an ongoing concern. If a manager criticizes your performance in a meeting, follow up in writing and ask for specifics. Which situation? What was expected? What should change? Vague criticism left unclarified becomes the official narrative, and official narratives get referenced in termination decisions written by people who never met you. Sixth, blame after failure. When projects collapse, history gets rewritten with remarkable speed. Warnings you raised disappear. Context evaporates. Decisions made above you migrate downward until they're sitting on your desk. The people rewriting the story aren't necessarily villains, they're protecting themselves, and you're the path of least resistance. The only defense is a record created before the failure, not after. The email you sent flagging the risk in March is what protects you in June. Seventh, leave, medical issues, accommodations, flexible arrangements, reduced hours, returning to work. A manager's friendly verbal approval means nothing to payroll and less to HR. Of course, take the time you need, is a sentiment, not an authorization. When the system processes your absence, the system will ask what was approved, by whom, and in writing. If the answer is nothing, the friendliest manager in the world can't help you. Eighth, termination, resignation, and the gray zone between them. If you're ever told, this is probably best for everyone, slow down. Understand exactly what is being offered, what you're giving up, and what the paperwork will say before you agree to anything. People have resigned in meetings they walked into as employees without realizing a resignation cost them things a termination wouldn't. Ninth, retaliation after a complaint. Nobody ever says, we're punishing you. That would be documented. Instead, punishment arrives in plausibly deniable pieces. Your calendar empties. People stop copying you into emails. Meetings get rescheduled without you. Decisions start happening in rooms you're no longer in. Then, 6 months later, someone reviews your performance and says, you haven't really been contributing. Each incident is deniable on its own. Documented together with dates, they form a pattern, and patterns are what investigations actually respond to. One honest caveat, because this matters: documentation is not magic. A written record is not automatic proof. What it does is create a timeline. It captures memory while it's accurate. It allows misunderstandings to be corrected early when correction is still cheap. It preserves context. It prevents silence from being interpreted as agreement. This is also why I created the Workplace Response Kit. One of the hardest parts isn't realizing you should document something. It's figuring out how to write it without sounding defensive, emotional, or like you're declaring war on your manager. The kit gives you practical templates for the situations employees struggle with most: following up after meetings, confirming instructions, responding to vague criticism, documenting workload changes, and other moments where the right wording makes all the difference. If that's something you need, you'll find it linked in the description. Back to something just as important. There's a reason people instinctively avoid putting things in writing, and it's worth understanding. Conversation floats. It can be reinterpreted, softened, denied, forgotten. Writing freezes reality. Once something exists on paper, it becomes very difficult to rewrite later. That's exactly why written records make people uncomfortable, and exactly why they work. Which means how you write matters as much as whether you write. Emotional emails destroy credibility. Exaggeration hands the other side a weapon. Accusations without facts weaken real cases. The best documentation sounds boring, professional, specific, short, almost emotionless. Boring is believable. Boring survives scrutiny. Know your tools, too. Private notes preserve your memory. Emails create shared records. Meeting summaries confirm understanding. HR complaints trigger formal processes. Grievance procedures create official trails. Written responses to performance reviews enter your file permanently. Each has a different weight. Use the lightest one that fits the situation. When something happens, capture 5 things: the fact, what occurred without interpretation; the date, the people involved or present; the impact on your work, your pay, your role; and the action, what you did or what you're requesting. Fact, date, people, impact, action. 5 lines. That's a record. Careers rarely fall apart because someone forgot a conversation. They fall apart because nobody could prove the conversation ever happened. Your memory protects your peace. Your documentation protects your career. Speak when conversations are needed. Write when consequences are real.